Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Episode 39 of the 9 to 5 Fitness Podcast. Gab, how are you? How'd you sleep?
Mate, I'm very well. I slept pretty decently, just 6 hours uninterrupted. I always think that's better than 8 hours of restless sleep. What about yourself?
Yep, going really well. Slept really well. We've got another fantastic guest on, Nick Lavery, Olympic rower. How are you, mate? And how did you sleep?
Yeah, pretty good, fellas. I slept all right last night. I was a bit restless. Bit of that heavy rain woke me up in the middle of the night. But yeah, not too bad. Feeling pretty good this morning.
Is sleep something that you really emphasize for yourself? Obviously, you train ridiculously hard. A lot of cardio in there, a lot of training volume. You must need your sleep.
Sleep, massive deal for me, really. It's something that I think probably a lot of people that are around me when I'm training and everything know me for. I do try and get a lot of sleep. And, you really notice the difference when you wake up the next morning. If you've had a bad day, a bad night's sleep, you're just absolutely scattered and there's no really returning until you get a good night's sleep. So.
Was there a point for you where it kind of clicked, where you really realised you needed more sleep? For those who don't know, we actually went to school together. Nick and I did a few classes together. I don't know, were you prioritising your sleep back then or was it kind of after
Absolutely
school?
Not. Yeah. Absolutely not. Not at school. I didn't think about it at all, really. You kind of just get up at random different times because we were training in the morning. Sometimes you weren't. So you're sleeping in some mornings. You're getting up early the others. And then there's at night, you just, depending on whatever you're doing, you'll go to sleep at random times. And I think it probably really did affect the cognitive ability at school without noticing. And then as I started to get a bit older and more independent, I started probably in that year after I finished school, I started to think about it way more as I started to step up the training.
Yeah.
And I did know, you just notice massive benefits from it. And I've noticed it with the guys that I train with. If I know that they're not really that good sleepers, they can be a little bit more inconsistent than people who really prioritize that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely a big deal.
And I know, there's different levels of people who kind of track sleep and stuff. Gab tracks every move, every inch of his sleep. He has a special app called Sleep Cycle. Do you track your sleep and check how you slept, or do you just do it off
I used to, because I'm sure you guys have heard about that Whoop stuff, Whoop straps and everything. I used to have one of them and I wore that for about 6 months. And I think it was really good because it gave me a good insight into how much actual sleep I was getting. So if I wanted to get 8 hours, I'd usually have to be in bed trying to get 9 hours sleep because you'd lose an hour in latency and in falling asleep and waking up, being restless and everything. And it tracks your sleep cycles. But I think I kind of got to the stage after doing that for about 6 months where I kind of knew the patterns well enough to know what I was kind of looking for, and it didn't really need to do it as much anymore. But it was definitely a really good thing to do for that period to get a bit more of an understanding as to what was going on. But yeah.
I reckon that's about the best response we've had to do you actually take your sleep seriously?
Yeah, definitely.
Most people just kind of...
That's one of the biggest insights you pick up from tracking it is you do lose quite a bit in there, probably 10% or something you lose in there. So it's a really important insight.
I just say at least an hour. I reckon an hour you lose. I think no matter what you do, if you say, if you give yourself 7 hours in bed, so say you got in bed at, I can't be bothered doing the maths.
But,
you get in bed 10 p.m. and you wake up 5 a.m.
Well, say 10 till 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
That's 12 hours. You're actually probably only getting 11.
Yeah.
Or probably even less the longer it goes on. So, 10% is probably pretty close.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, COVID diaries. We've been doing a bit of a thing each podcast. Yeah. What's happening during the week? Gab, COVID diaries for you. Anything new happened?
Oh, mate, I don't know. It just seems that Australia Post are missing our house. We've got about 68 parcels in the mail. We do. And they're just not coming. So it's pretty frustrating, mate. Honestly, not a whole lot happening. What about you?
Yeah, much the same. We live in the same house. So,
true. I forgot about that.
Exact same setup. Nick, are you able to continue kind of life without too much stress of COVID in terms of, have you had to change many things, work, so on?
Not really. It's been pretty relaxed for me coming back. we can't really do any training on the water at the moment for rowing and stuff. So there's just been a lot of indoor stuff going on. It hasn't really been too disruptive. I think the thing that is disrupting me the most is just the being able to travel across the borders. Yeah. So the house that I actually live in is in Canberra. So most of my stuff's there, and I'm still living in a suitcase since coming back from
that's ridiculous.
From the games. So that's really just the only thing that's annoying me is the border travel.
Yeah. That would be annoying, and I don't know how long until we're opening up.
I'd presume as a rower, getting out on the water is pretty pivotal to actually performing well. You'd think.
Essential.
Yeah.
We're
in a bit of a low patch now anyway, so there's nothing really to. Yeah. It's not that urgent, but it is, something that we want to do.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I got the Olympics off, but we'll get into that later. I just wanted to introduce to our listeners, who Nick is. So he's an Olympic rower, 191 centimeters, 87 kegs. At least that's what Wikipedia said. Hopefully I'm close to it. You rowed in the men's 8 at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. Gab and I were the TV behind us. We were screaming at it. It was awesome to watch. All our group chats were going off. Nick's about to race. So pretty incredible. This is kind of our Olympics where we had a few people that we knew in it. And that was just a really kind of game-changing experience. Nick, how long have you been rowing for, and how'd you get started?
I started in school in year 10, and so I'm not sure how many years that is. I think it's about six or 7 years or something at this point. And yeah, I was a swimmer before that, and then just signed up for rowing in year 10, and I don't know, just kind of got swept up in it, I think. And I probably showed a little bit of talent early because I was a bit of a bigger kid, and so had a bit of strength, and that usually helps with rowing. Yeah. I'm not one of the big ones now, but I was big then, so it helped me back then. And yeah, I just rowed through year 11 and 12. We had a pretty good season in year 12, which kind of motivated me to keep going after school.
Yeah.
Did a year in Melbourne after school, which wasn't that successful. There wasn't really a great rowing program or programs down in Melbourne. So after that, moved to Sydney for 2 years, lived in Sydney, trained at UTS and studied at UTS. And then in 2019, got selected to train at the National Training Centre in Canberra and spent the last 2 years there. And yeah, got selected for the Olympics early this year and went and did that.
Yeah, fantastic year, Gab.
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing. I think what the most amazing thing is, I was rowing at the same school as you were, and I think you just came through the ranks, or you came out of nowhere. It was an amazing I'm pretty sure you played soccer as well, and I'm going to be honest here, I didn't think you were the most remarkable athlete or anything, and then you just exploded and had this really amazing transformation. And I think for me, it's really inspiring, and I think for a lot of our other listeners, it will be too. Do you want to touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, well, I think I still probably don't consider myself the most athletic compared to the guys that I train with. They're absolutely phenomenal in terms of power and strength. But I think puberty will help you out a fair amount for a lot of people, and I've always been a bit of a grinder anyway.
Yeah.
And so I think I kind of just got to I'm getting to the potential that I had, which may not be as high as some other people's ceilings for their potential and what they can possibly do. Usually there's freaks everywhere.
Yeah.
And you can't really compare yourself to the freaks, but if you just keep training and grinding away, you'll definitely you'll hit your potential at least, and it'll be much further than you probably think.
Yeah,
I think is probably my best answer to that. And so I just trained really hard and didn't think too much about outcomes a lot of the time, and just tried to enjoy it and embrace it.
What's the saying? I think it's hard work beats talent.
Yeah, I think
if the talent doesn't work hard,
yeah, sounds like you've definitely got the hard-working nature, that grinding aspect of you.
Yeah.
Well, that's all rowing is, isn't it? It's that grinding. I mean, I never did rowing personally, but I remember hearing things of people doing you guys had to, in year 10, you were doing, 120 squats or something in a row.
Oh yeah, the jump squats. I remember they were terrible. I don't know how much further they continued after like year 10, but
yeah,
No,
it's it, like the
not very
training.
far.
You're not doing them at the AIS.
I haven't done many of them. No.
I wonder what the scientific backing on the resistance training of 120 jump squats is. A few ACLs, I don't know.
a few ACLs.
Well, one of the blokes that we had at the training center early, or like in mid that like COVID break period, the first lockdown that we had, he came back and did 240 squats with 60 kilos on his back without putting the bar down, just to see like whether he could do it.
Oh wow,
Not fun.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like
240 squats.
Give it up, mate.
That's
The different
shit
breed.
house.
The rowers are a bit nuts. Yeah, well, I mean, you were always pushing yourself. I mean, rowers in general. I do recall you were doing it as well. You did a 24-hour row, didn't you? I remember at school with some mates or with some other rowers. Didn't you row for like overnight? Was that a thing?
Yeah, I think we took it in shifts. So I think we ended up doing about maybe a bit over 4 hours over that 24 hours, but we were kind of there doing like half an hour on, 2 hours off or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. So you're kind of on the clock for that whole 24 hours. I think, people are still doing that like pretty much every year, and it's a good thing for like school kids to do. I think just staying up and getting after it for a while.
Just going back to your transformation, I'm interested, like, how intentional was it? Like, did you know you were going to like completely transform yourself, or was it just something that happened?
Not really. I guess like you always like want to, but like I wasn't like too concerned with that. I think I was just competitive, with the rowing, and like still pretty competitive now. And so if you get swept up in that competitiveness, like it's pretty easy to just do a lot of training and because you want to win.
Yeah.
And so I guess like that kind of like I never really thought about like transforming myself or anything like that. It was kind of just a bit. It's just like I just wanted to do the training because I wanted to win, and I knew like that the more that I trained, the more I learned, the more I saw myself getting better, and that was a rewarding experience in itself. And so as I got better, I wanted to train more and more and more, and so I think that whatever like the transformation or the body change and the gains and all that kind of stuff was like almost just a byproduct of the mindset of like being competitive and like having almost having like an external goal, So yeah.
So it's just a result of your overall competitiveness and passion for the sport. And do you think?
I think so. Yeah.
Do you think like your body composition changed drastically through that as well?
Nah, not really. I mean,
okay.
I think I probably just over the years have put on like more muscle, but because of just the amount of cardio that we do, you kind of limited to some extent by your like genetic makeup of how much muscle you can actually put on while doing that cardio.
Yeah.
So some guys can sit at, can do all that cardio and sit at 100 kilos and just be, like so strong. But that I didn't really, the only times I've been able to put on muscle is when I've dropped that cardio back a fair bit. And so while I've been rowing, I don't think I've changed, that much. Maybe from the outside I have, but it's, you are kind of limited, when you're doing that much cardio, I think. And so I don't think I've changed apart from just getting stronger and fitter over the years. Like I don't think I've actually changed too much since that like year kind of out of school. I've maybe like thickened up a little bit and become a bit more robust. But yeah. And like we've done so much training that like if I was going to have changed, I like would have, if that makes sense, like, so yeah.
Yeah. You change days are done. Your transformation's finished now, mate. You're not going to become Ziz. I remember in school you were giving up every lunch to go and train in the gym and things like that. I mean, I suppose that kind of mindset is kind of what came with it. Was that with a bigger picture in mind? Were you giving up kind of your lunch times in the gym to become an Olympic rower, or was it just to be win the Regatta that year?
I think it was like a little bit like a lot of it, like I just enjoyed. Like I still really enjoy getting in the gym, and so like for me that was actually like maybe like for other people it didn't seem like that much fun, but for me like that actually was like a fun way to spend lunch, I thought. And like a lot of the guys that I like did that with, like that we went to school with, that were in there with me, like we were just like mates, and like we just loved getting in the gym. And I think like because Wesley didn't have a really good program for doing that, like they didn't really support it too much. Like the only real option we had was to do it in lunch times. And I think like we just enjoyed it, and like we were just messing around, like we didn't really know what we were doing too much, but like it probably we obviously wanted to win and stuff like that, and we knew that it would help to be like a bit stronger, but I think mostly we just like enjoyed it. So
for anyone that's struggling with motivation to get in the gym, that just speaks volumes, doesn't it, Gab, in terms of getting in with mates? Like I was there with Nick, in the gym and stuff, and we had no idea what we were doing, but it was just good fun. Like you just go to have fun. It was better than like sitting around in a circle and talking to mates, or kicking a soccer ball. For me,
socializing's fucks, mate.
I don't know why you do that.
I think that's a great point, and like you do need to go through that trial and error period where you're just enjoying it with your mates. You don't know what you're doing. You're figuring out what the best techniques are and things like that, and kind of just immersing yourself initially in that gym environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in terms of training and stuff, Nick, calorie expenditure, like you're doing crazy amounts of cardio. I kind of just wanted to get into like the training for rowing, get a little bit more specific. Has it drastically changed through kind of as you've gone through the ranks, or is it pretty much the same? Are you doing weight training, heaps of cardio, and then a fair bit of time out on the water, or is it more kind of ergo stuff and so on?
So I think to like some extent the training makeup, as in how much time and effort you would put into each of the disciplines that it takes to do to train successfully for rowing, which is obviously on water is a lot. Then ergs kind of make up not that much, but like a little bit, maybe 2 or 3 sessions a week. And then weights is 3 sessions a week probably as well. But the makeup of that hasn't really changed the whole time I've been going through it. It's just that we've just done more volume. So whereas we would have done 5 rows a week when I was at school, now we're doing when like in the height of the training before the games, we're doing 3 sessions a day, 2 of which would always be rows, and then 2 of which would always be rows. Then Monday, Wednesday, Friday would be weights in the afternoon, and then Tuesday, Thursday, and then Saturday second session would be an erg.
So like rest days or
just Sunday.
Yeah.
So like you can kind of see like when you're doing that much cardio, how when you're in the gym, like you're not really that you can't do any more than that really, and a lot of it is just injury prevention. You're just holding on to muscle mass, and then it's in injury prevention. Like you're not getting too much stronger. You're not putting on too much more muscle. It's really just trying to hold that body nice and compact and tight, and like keep those joints all strong so that you can do all of that cardio without just getting injured and weak, But so that's pretty much it.
So does your weight fluctuate throughout the year? Like, are you using this time now to build more muscle mass, or is it more you're just relaxing?
Probably at the moment it says 87 kilos on the wiki, but I'm probably I don't think I've been 87 kilos since maybe 2020 or something like that. I think at the games I was about 88, 89.
Yeah.
And now I'm probably like 90, 92 around that kind of ballpark. And it doesn't change too much. Maybe changes 2 or 3 kilos, I think. Like during winter when you're doing more training, you just want to have, I can't remember, I think it might have been Alex Gregory or something. He was a rower in the London Great Britain 4 that won. He said something like 5% body weight fluctuation between training weight and racing weight. I'm not sure whether it was him or Pete Reed maybe, but so they go around 5% increase for when you're training, and you need to just be able to take like all that load and doing all that training, and then drop down, 2 or 3 kilos.
Obviously, every kilo
to
matters.
a racing weight.
Yeah, when you're on the water.
Yeah. To some extent, it's not as important as say cycling.
Yeah.
I think like some of the best rowers have all had spare tires around the middle, so like then like it doesn't matter too much. The power is really the most important thing, and because technique's so important as well. You could be skinny as a rake and still just not have the power or the movement to get boat speed.
I saw in Tokyo there were quite a few crews catching crabs. It was a bit wavy and rough out there.
Yeah. That was on that Wednesday, that repechage and finals day for the fours and the quads. That was a really, really bad day.
I find it so nerve-wracking, like the start for rowing when they're all lined up and there's like a whole process of like the sirens that go up. I was like nervous for you. My heart rate was at like 200, like watching you. I was like, this is like so nerve-wracking, more than any other sport. I feel like when everyone's lined up, there's so much preparation. Everyone's got the boats perfectly aligned and perfectly straightened, and it's just like
everything.
It's so nerve-wracking. Like I was like itching. Like
on that day, I think as well because of the water, they've got the boots that come up and hold the front of the boat. Like you would in the rowing that we did, we never had them back at school, but on those ones, so they have the timing gates and everything's like perfect. But people would kept because of the water, they'd get pushing up into them and they'd have to go down. So I think we redid it. We started the thing basically like 3 times or something before like everyone got in normally. And that was a bit of a stressful experience because I was up in the bow with Jack O'Brien in 2-seat, and we were just like talking to each other, like touching it, try and get it like perfectly straight, and then they'd bring it down and we'd be like, all right, here we go again. That was a bit nerve-wracking.
In the actual races, is there much chat between the rowers? Are you guys kind of shouting at each other, or are you just too gassed? I couldn't believe how long the races were, to be honest. I know nothing about rowing, and I was rattled. I was like, fuck, when's it finished? Yeah,
it was, there's not really that much communication that goes on, especially in the 8, you've got the Cox. So he does most of the talking. But yeah, there really is not too much communication because you're just blowing so hard. Like you probably give a few words of encouragement to the bloke in front of you, or try and scream to maybe 1 or 2 blokes in front of you. But other than that, not really. You just don't really have the breath for it.
I'm not sure if it's true, but I can't recall if someone said this, but most countries prioritize their 8s, whereas Australia prioritizes their quads. Is that true whatsoever?
All of the countries that were in the A final of the 8, prioritized the 4. Sorry, the 8.
Yeah. Okay.
But all the countries, Australia, we were the only country in the men's 8 that didn't prioritize that, and also the women's 8 didn't prioritize the 8. And we prioritized the 4. So that's why we won both 4s.
Yeah.
And then the sculling program is like a little separate because it's a different discipline.
Yeah.
So they kind of separate the groups, and they're not really competing for the seats in, even though there's very good rowers in the sculling, they're not competing for the seats in the 4 and the 8.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess that's just how they managed it this cycle. Yeah. Australia's got a big history in the men's 4 and the smaller boats. So I think they want to carry that on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the 4s and the 8s train together, like very specifically in like.
As we for most of the year, we train in small boats, so pairs and singles.
Oh yeah.
And we'll train as a squad, and then in about March we do the trials, and in those trials, that's when they split everyone up into 4s and 8s and whatever crew you're doing in, and then from there it's usually pretty separate just because of the different boat speeds of the boats. Obviously the 8 is the fastest, and so it's difficult to train alongside a 4 or a pair who you'll go through in 2 or 3 strokes,
Yeah.
because they just can't keep up. So after that point, once the crews are selected, it's usually pretty separate.
Yeah. And I remember in high school, I'm not sure if you've ever done like an ergo test, Louis, but the thing was like the 2K ergo time trial. And that, like, to this day, like, if you're going hardcore, that's one of the most grueling tasks I reckon there is. I'm not sure if you'll disagree with me, Nick, but, like, do you still do many of them in Olympic status kind of training?
Yeah. We do about 2 a year, maybe 3 a year, but usually only 2 a year. And they're in that first half of the year, so that we do one in January usually, and then we do one in at trials in March. But yeah, we don't really do them. We don't do them that often. Probably do them more often at school, to be honest. But they do take a serious hit, you know.
Do they
to do them? So
is everyone just vomiting at your camp?
Depends who you are. Like, some people vomit a lot and some people don't. Like, I'm not a massive vomiter. I've only vomited a few times. But some blokes always vomiting. I just don't know why, but it's just I don't know, they get a lot of lactic in their stomach. Other guys don't. So
it's the most aggressive sport.
I can't remember what the time was that if you were good. I remember in year 10 maybe it was at least at my school when I moved to a different school, if you were in if you got 7-minute 2K erg, something like that, then you'd be in the A's. I'm not sure what it was at your school, but what kind of 2K... I
think that's probably about right.
Yeah. What kind of 2K
at school
ergs?
In year 10.
Yeah. I think if you were holding a 130 split for 500 meters, that was really good back in the day. But what kind of 2K ergs are you guys pulling?
Oh, well, pretty much everyone is under 6 minutes. In Canberra. I'm just under 6 minutes, but the fastest guy that we had in the squad this year was 5:39.
Yeah.
Which is just
unbelievable.
Nuts.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's unbelievable. For anyone that wants to know what that feels like, get on the erg and try and pull a 124 split.
Yeah.
Just try and get it to 124.
Yeah, most people can't
and then realize that he did it for 5 minutes and 40 seconds.
Yeah, that's
ridiculous.
You'd I reckon I might just be able to crack 124 if I'm going full. I can't remember what I can get, but yeah, sustaining that is just superhuman, honestly.
Yeah. And so that's the fastest guy we had, which that's world class. I think there's only 7 or 8 blokes in the world that have gone under 540. And we got a few blokes in the low 540s. We got a few blokes in the high 540s, and then a fair few blokes between that 550 and 6 minutes. But pretty much everyone's under 6 minutes. And
does having a good 2K erg translate to being a good 2K rower in the 8s or the 4s?
It definitely helps. It definitely having power is always going to be useful to everyone. So, and for me, someone who's not that powerful relative to some of the guys in the group, I really have to make up for that in other areas. Make sure that I'm rowing really well and having a minimal impact on the boat. Negatively. So everything that I am doing is 100% going into making the boat go fast rather than slowing it down. Whereas some of the guys that have all that power can kind of throw it around a little bit and don't need, if they are that careful with it, they're obviously going to be a very good rower.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, sometimes with that power, you lose a bit of touch on what you're doing to the boat, and the power is less effective. So it is definitely important. You need to be in that ballpark, I think. Sub 6 is just vital, pretty much. But it's not everything. Because we've got guys that that are just under 6, but they're kind of the top guys in the program.
Yeah,
and they're beating the really powerful guys. So the rowing is definitely probably even a bigger part of it. But the power, you can't look past it, and coaches will never look past it. They see. Everyone's eyes, light up when they see a big erg score.
So I want to ask, to have a good erg, there's probably 2 components, or maybe 3 even. Maybe flexibility is kind of an underlying one, and then obviously cardiovascular and your power through resistance training. Do you want to speak a little bit about what the most important elements are to pulling a good 2K erg?
Definitely, I think you want... my 2K, I'm probably not the best person to ask for this because I'm not a big erg guy.
You're doing under 6 minutes, mate.
You're at the Olympics, brother.
In my experience, it really helps if you've got good peak power. So you can really get that split down nice and low, even if it's only over 5 or 6 strokes or something. Obviously, you want just a really good base for cardio. You just need to be able to go for a long time, basically. And you need to know what works for you. Some guys that are really powerful, maybe rating really high, as in stroke rate, keeping the stroke rate really high is not the most efficient way for them. for them, the best thing to do is keep it a little bit lower and load up each stroke.
It's like
real
cadence on a
long.
bike. Yeah.
Yeah. Cadence on the bike. That's exactly what it's like. So you imagine whether you're just like spinning really quickly or whether you're like kind of grinding it a little bit. Some guys can grind really quickly and other guys like to move quickly and put in a little bit less power each stroke, but take more strokes.
Yeah.
So you kind of just got to know what your strengths are. And yeah, I think probably the biggest thing is just the mental side to it, because it's only, depending on how fit you are, 6 or 7 minutes long, but it's it's going to feel like a lot longer, and you're probably going to be more like wired into what you're doing than you would be with most other things, just because of the pain.
Yeah.
And I think the positive mindset kind of stuff, maybe it sounds a bit cliche, but really just giving yourself small markers to hit, and then feeling good about yourself when you hit those markers, like every minute, like you just give yourself a little bit of like, yeah, good, we're going for the next minute now. Like break it up and stay focused on what you're doing rather than on how you feel. That's one of the best things that I think like works a lot well for me, because it's very easy to get caught up in how you feel and the pain you're in. And as soon as you start thinking like that, you just want to quit.
Yeah.
So it's not so much distracting yourself from that by external distractions. It's like creating an internal focus to move you away from that perception of what's going on. But yeah, I think they're probably the biggest things, the three biggest things for me. I think flexibility is one, but just rowing long, or like you just got to try and row long. But it's definitely obviously power. So you want to be strong. So you want to be in the gym, and like building that peak power up. Then cardio, you've just got to do a lot of base, like low steady state training. And then in the lead up to your 2K, do some faster pieces where you have to deal with a bit of lactic, and get your body primed for dealing with lactic acid and getting it back out of the system. And then, just the mindset, just keep working on that fortitude.
You speak about mindset. We're pretty keen on mindset and kind of meditation. We were talking about how we were freaking out watching you just lining up in Tokyo. Do you guys do much, or do you personally do much for your mindset and to try and kind of help your nerves settle and so on?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for everyone else, but I've been meditating pretty much every day since like mid 2019 or something. And I think it's just like, you don't have to do much if you just do what's manageable. It's better doing less than you think you can handle. Like if you're trying to do 20 minutes a day and you just get so uncomfortable and so fidgety and you're not getting anything out of it, you'll just stop doing it. But like it's better to just do 5-10 minutes a day. So I do that a lot, and I think it's helped me like so much. Unbelievable. Just like the little amounts of like self-awareness of your own mindset and being aware of the thoughts that you're having and the way that you feel about things, and not necessarily attaching your whole personality and existence into those thoughts and feelings, that really helps with elite sport and with training where like pain is quite a big part of what you're doing, to be able to not identify with that pain so fully that it, that you feel like it is like your whole existence is pain in that moment. That's a really, really massive skill to have. So I don't know. I think a lot of the guys that like I'm with, like I don't think they'd be at this high level if they weren't naturally kind of good at that. And naturally good at that, but putting in like a little bit of extra practice with it can help a lot. Like a bit of formal practice can really help.
And do you kind of like I know there's guided meditations out there, which I kind of disagree with, because I feel as though meditation should be you with your own thoughts and not kind of acknowledging anything, just sitting there and dismissing things. What's your kind of approach to it?
I've tried like a bit of both. At the moment, I'm doing a bit more guided meditation because I kind of was doing just a lot of sitting with a timer for like maybe close to a year, and I kind of just noticed that I wasn't as disciplined or as as I didn't have as good of an understanding of what I was doing it for anymore. if that kind of makes sense. So I wanted to just, because I started out doing guided, and then I wanted to come back to that like formal practices, thoughts or feelings or like whatever the noting is, or the body scanning and stuff like that. So I think it's really good for you to learn those skills, the guided meditations, even if it may be a bit distracting sometimes when there are the voices that come in. But I think to learn the skills and to build your toolbox, the guided can be really important.
Yeah.
And then the just silent, still sitting, not non-guided, that kind of helps you develop that and strengthen all those things that you've kind of learned, because you no longer have someone there to do it for you. So I don't know. I think I could go both ways. At the moment, I'm doing a bit of guided, and maybe I'll go back to non-guided at some point. But yeah, I think they're both good.
So you're sitting on the start line at Tokyo. We're shitting ourselves. We're really nervous. You're probably nervous as well. What are you telling yourself while you're sitting there ready to go? Are you going back through kind of fundamentals? Are you doing a bit of meditation, or is it just kind of a little bit hectic?
I really wasn't thinking that much at all, and like I was nervous, but at the games there was so much going on at all times. It was almost overwhelming to the extent that I didn't know what I should be nervous about anymore, because there was so much going on. Like there was too much to, at least for me. I don't know how it felt for other people. I just speak for myself, but yeah, there was so much going on, and it was such an intense experience that I was really just in the moment the whole time. Like my body was probably just completely fight or flight for like 2 weeks. And I didn't really have any thoughts about like what I was doing. I just kind of went there and did it. And so it was really a surreal experience, because I haven't really felt like that in a long time. It was very moment to moment. It was very zen, kind of in a stressful way.
Yeah.
I don't really know how else to describe it. Yeah, it may not be what you kind of were expecting to hear, or like what other people have said, but yeah, that's really it. I was just in the moment, and I didn't have the opportunity to think about anything really.
And did that subside or settle once you were into the race? You know, like a kilometre in, you're hurting a lot. Were you able to go back to those fundamentals, or was it still just kind of organised panic?
Just complete. I wouldn't say it was organised panic. I wasn't panicking, but
yeah,
I was. No, I can't remember anything from the races really. Like, they were just complete autopilot. So it really was a case of everything. Like that you do in your training coming out, I guess, because I do actually feel like in that time as a crew, and we didn't go that well, but there's a part of me that sees how that was like a culmination of our training. And so like a culmination of our training and just everything kind of that swirls around it. There's a lot, but I was really just on autopilot for like the whole thing. And so it was a very interesting experience to almost get out. Like I don't remember feeling like a super high amount of pain. I had so much adrenaline.
Really?
I was just going. Yeah. It was different to other races, because in domestic races that don't mean that much, you don't have that much in you. Like you don't have that much,
emotional attachment.
No, yeah, kind of, but like you're not that worked up. You don't feel like you're going to. You don't feel like you're going into war. Like you don't feel like it's seriously probably the most intense experience of your life.
Yeah,
and so you do notice the pain in those races, and you do notice you do have thoughts throughout the race, and I've never kind of raced and been watching myself race like that, kind of detached almost. So yeah, it was a very surreal experience.
And so like the lead up into the race, I'm not sure what time the race was where you were in Tokyo, but was there much kind of media and stuff you had to do beforehand, or were you kind of in your room getting psyched out? What was kind of your routine before the race?
There wasn't. Well, before the race, we all had our own kind of separate routines. We never had media in our faces before races or anything. The only media that we dealt with on race day was the cameras on the course.
Yep.
So no, we just kind of went through our little motions and what everyone does as individuals, and then we'd come together as a crew and do that kind of group preparation for what we were for the racing and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's about it. Not really too much media. There's more media in the days leading up and the airports and all of that.
Yep. And so after you'd finished kind of racing, like once you'd finished your last race, was there a huge sense of relief? What was kind of the overriding feeling?
Yeah, I think after the last race, it was just like relief and exhaustion and everything kind of catching up that had been put to the side before that point. So that was like a pretty emotional and just like flattening kind of like big sigh. That's kind of how I felt. Like it just was like a massive sigh at the end. And I was just so exhausted and so, because it was just, I was fatigued mentally and spiritually and physically, obviously, but like up to that point, I probably didn't realize how much mental stress and everything that I've been under. So when that finished, that was real, like the relief and just a massive sigh, basically. That's how I can describe it.
Yeah. I can't imagine how that is. Did you hang around in Tokyo long after your race, or like were you able to go and watch some of the other competitions and stuff?
No. So they had the Tokyo officials made it very clear that you had to be out of the village within 48 hours of your last race of your event. Yeah. So you really couldn't enjoy it. The whole time we were there, we couldn't go and see other events. But I don't think anyone could. Everyone basically just went there, did their sport, and then had to leave. So that's basically what we did. We didn't stick around for long.
Now, the Olympic Village, we've heard it gets pretty hectic. A lot of very kind of well-trained athletes running around, a lot of high testosterone, a lot of work all gone into it. Was the Olympic Village ever like hectic, or was it kind of a little bit kind of brushed aside because of COVID?
It wasn't really too bad, to be honest. Like it was, not that like I noticed. Like we had our own celebrations just in our rooms the night of, and I think most other athletes, the village is always buzzing because of the TV rights and the schedule. There's athletes that are competing at 10:30 at night, and so by the time they're finished, they're still walking around the village at 12, 1 in the morning. So it wasn't really that hectic. Like most of the time, it was all pretty kept nice and close. But the village was always busy just because there's stuff going on 24/7.
Yeah,
like the dining hall's open 24/7. All that. So yeah.
Were your beds cardboard? Were they made out of cardboard?
They were cardboard. But pretty sturdy.
What's up with that?
I think it's because the village is all basically disposable because they turn them into residential apartments afterwards. Yeah. And so all the walls in the building in the village buildings were really thin plasterboard. There was no paint on them. The beds were cardboard because they're obviously just going to take them and recycle them. Everything was just recyclable so that they can strip the whole village out and turn it into residential apartments. So that's why. It makes sense, but from the outside, if you don't know that, it looks a bit silly, but it makes sense.
The stories from the outside sounded funny. Like there were a lot of things I saw on TikTok. It was like, so the athletes can't have sex and like to prevent COVID. It's like far out. It's a bit of a stretch, isn't it? Like doesn't really matter.
I don't know. They're pretty fucking sturdy. I reckon you could probably
get away with a fair bit.
Get a big rower on there though.
Yeah, maybe. Or a weightlifter.
A big powerlift, get him on there. So how did you go on a personal level? Obviously, like you're in a team of 8, but how did you think you went and kind of, would you change anything in future Olympics? I'm sure it probably gets more and more relaxed by your 10th Olympics, but how did you go on a personal level?
I think I was just, because I am so young compared to a lot of the guys that I was with, it was I was just a deer in headlights for like a lot of it, and I really didn't know what to expect. And Like, I wish I could go back and say that, like, I would change things, but, like, just, you only know what you know at the time, you know? Mm. So there's nothing, like, I don't think I would have done anything differently, or, like, I think I learned enough from the experience that, I'm not fully having all those kind of regrets and wishing I'd done something differently, you know, like, it was very much like a massive learning experience. And for me, someone so young to just go is, that's like very fortunate when there's guys that have done a lot more training and were older than me that, you know, and had been on international teams for Australia for multiple years that kind of missed out, because, you know, that extra year of COVID was just so stressful and, really took a toll on people's lives in that aspect. And I was just lucky kind of to go. So, it was definitely hard, and like, I can't ever take away from that. And it was exhausting, and, I was so tired and, fatigued afterwards in pretty much every aspect. But, I guess that's all I can say.
Yeah, no, it's pretty incredible, mate. It's so cool to be able to sit back and watch, especially when you know someone who's gone to the Olympics. So next steps for you, you got back from Tokyo, is it back home to Melbourne, do you get to relax for a bit, or are you straight into thinking about the next race?
I'm definitely not thinking about the next race. But yeah, I'm just in Melbourne at the moment, and I'm going to go back in January and start training again in Canberra. And so, yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to say, oh yeah, I'm going to try and go to the next Olympics, but it is a massive journey that's multiple years long. And so you really don't know what's going to happen, you know, 2 years down the track. And that's something I've kind of been thinking about, you know, like, if I get 2 years in and something like I'm, you know, not feeling it anymore, like that might be the end. But at the moment, I do want to go to Paris.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, for now, I'm kind of taking it pretty easy and doing uni, doing other things, and just resting up to go another cycle.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to touch a little bit more specifically on the training and nutrition aspect of kind of your regime. Like, I'd presume that you guys would be burning 5,000 calories a day with like just the amount of steady state cardio and just constant activity that you're actually doing. Talk us through how you replenish that just like serious amount of calories, and put into numbers what's actually happening.
So it's probably not the best health advice. But like, I mean, if you're burning, I don't think I burn 5,000 calories a day, but there's definitely some of the big boys that do. And I mean, at the end of the day, you've just got to get it back in. You know, you can't be like losing weight. And so in our situation, it's by any means necessary. So there's plenty of circumstances where I can, like, we've come in after doing 2 rows and then gym, and it's, you know, 5 o'clock in the afternoon or something. We go into the kitchen that we've got there in Canberra, and there'll be boys just sitting on the couch with like a 2-litre bowl of Chocky Oak, you know, and just like drinking from the thing, and they'll drink. Well, they'll drink the whole thing in 10 minutes or something, and then go home and have dinner. And like, that's just, there's like, I don't know, 1,500, 2,000 calories right there.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, and we've got a big jar of lollies that kind of sit on the bench that we just kind of, you know, have a handful as you walk past. And most guys don't put on too much weight, and most guys don't lose too much weight. So it kind of works, but it is not the healthiest lifestyle. Like, your digestive system is just constantly overloaded, which is not like a healthy. That's just another form.
The toilet gets a workout.
Really need. Oh yeah. It gets
a few big rows in the Olympic
First thing in the morning when everyone rocks up to the sheds, it's not pretty. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big. I don't have like a massive amount of knowledge about nutrition. I think if I could, I do try and avoid all of the sugars and stuff. Like, when I first got there, I used to have a lot of the gels, the energy gels. We have the electrolyte science and sport gels.
SIS,
we have them, and a lot of guys will use them every day, multiple times a day. And I found that you can pretty much get away with just having a banana. But so like I think most guys have like a knowledge of that, but some guys just can't can't go without. Like they're just so big and they use so much.
Those SIS gels are maltodextrin, so kind of I'm pretty sure it's quick hitting carbohydrates, and that's what's meant to kind of fuel you for those big rows and things like that.
Have a fair bit of caffeine in them as well.
Well, no, you can get separate double espresso ones. I think they got 150 milligrams in it.
Yeah, we've got those ones. We've got every one of them. Yeah, so they definitely give you an energy hit, but I think those the best thing about them is they do have the electrolytes in them.
Yeah.
So you like when you're drinking your water, you're staying hydrated and all that kind of stuff. But we also have the just little salt discs, the sodium discs as well.
Yeah, they're elite.
Yeah, I mean the caffeine is a big one. Everyone's a big coffee drinker.
Yeah,
because you need it, so especially if you like do a session then have a nap and you need to get up and about and do another one. So that's about it.
Do you have a go-to like calorie replenishment meal? Like, what do you have in that's 2K calories kind of thing?
I don't really have like we don't really meal prep or anything. Because we just have so much food. We're so fortunate. We have so much food constantly available to us, and we're sponsored by Coles, so we get Coles drop-offs multiple times a week. And I mean, we eat a lot of yogurt. We eat a lot of eggs. Everyone will pretty much have about 4 eggs after the first session in the morning, and toast and smoothies. We just have so much going for us, so we're very, very fortunate. And then dinner, you'll have pasta. And I think as long as you hit your groups, as long as you get some protein, some carbs and some veggies, like that's really all you need, really. And you'll find fat is just kind of in everything. I think you get enough fat by just everything that you eat. Like there's fat in the meat, there's fat in
the yogurt.
The oils that you use when you're cooking, there's fat in milk and yogurt and butter and everything. So I don't think too much about that. We mostly just think about like the protein and the carbs.
To any kids that are listening, it's time to chuck out mum's white bread sandwiches with the crust cut off and eat like a proper athlete. Because that's I think overlooked in school training is the crappy little lunches mum packs for you with the tiny teddies and the white bread sandwiches. It's just
after your rowing coach has made you do 600 squats in a row. God, he's just not the same after rowing practice for some reason. Poor kid. I suppose my final question, Nick, is kind of, if you could go back, or if you could speak to a younger Nick, or just anyone who's kind of in year 10, starting out rowing, they're like, actually, I'm pretty good at this, or doing any sport really. What are the kind of 3 things that they should focus on to become a better athlete?
I think consistency is a big one. You just creating habits and constantly reinforcing them with consistency is a big one. That'll make, like, if you kind of take weeks off and too many days off and months off and stuff, like you just kind of have to create a schedule that might be try and create a schedule at first which is achievable pretty easily, and then build on it, and then as it gets harder you just kind of got to stick to it and trust your discipline. And I think the consistency is probably a big one. 3 things. I think ask for advice from people who've come before, because I think a lot of, especially I was really, kind of starstruck when I saw those older guys, and they're guys when I was rowing at school that were on the national team. And some of them I ended up rowing with in this age.
Yeah.
So like they're now like my mates and colleagues basically, or peers. Whereas I was at school and I was like, terrified of going and asking them for advice and stuff. But now I think if a kid came up to me and asked me advice, I would be more than happy to, try and help them, and because like they're showing that they're interested. So I think that's something, try and get over that and really do look to the older guys or girls for that advice, because like they know, they've been through the ropes, and especially like for even like us, Louis, like when we were just starting out in the gym, like, and we didn't know what we were doing, like it would have been good to have someone around to talk to, like we actually make some gains quickly rather than take 2 years to put on 2 kilos,
I distinctly remember a teacher coming up to me. I was on the bench and I had my legs on the ground, my feet were on the ground, had like a good back arch, and she said, no, you got to put a bench at the end of like your bench press to bring your legs up so that you can't have an arch. Well. You can't have an arch in your back. She was a fucking PE teacher, mate.
Exactly.
career
mate.
on it.
Yeah, we had some serious problems at Wesley. But like
More into the arts,
Yeah, I
I
don't
think.
know.
More into the arts.
yeah. I'm not really sure about a third one.
Yeah.
I just like maybe like I think just try and a big one is find something that you enjoy. Like you don't have to do like this is for rowing for me because I like enjoy rowing. I've learned to enjoy it more over time as I've gotten better at it. But I think if it's something that you enjoy, you'll really be invested in making an art out of it. And when you like make an art out of it, like you look at it a little bit differently, you know. So whether that's I don't know, like whether that's rock climbing or whether that's you know, whether that's you guys like kind of more physique stuff, you know, or whether it's you know any sport you're doing, like just like try and make it something that you become like a student of and an art of, you know. And yeah, that's about it, I guess. Yeah.
I did want to touch on your specific resistance training that you do. Like what kind of lifts, your weight sessions, you do 3 a week. Like talk a little bit about that.
So there's probably a lot of schools of thought over weight training and different stuff. I think in rowing, people prioritize strength endurance, so hypertrophy stuff. But I don't think that I did that for years, and I don't think that particularly worked that well for me because I wasn't that strong to begin with. Like I've never been a strong guy. I've always had good endurance and a good kind of engine to keep going, but I've never had the peak power. And so for me it was really important for me to focus on that strength. So now I pretty much only do strength training and it's like 5 rep kind of range. I feel like that's kind of perfect for me, and it's all big compound exercises. I feel like I try and do. So I pretty much don't do much more than squats, deadlifts, bench press, overhead press, bent over rows, like pen lay rows, and then chin ups and maybe a bit of core. But even the core, I think
gets
you can
indirectly
kind of
through compounds.
You can kind of do away with it if you're really doing a proper squat or a proper deadlift. You know, if you're engaging your core properly in that, like, and then you're loading up, you know, like 120, 130, 140 kilos on your back, like your core is going to have to be pretty strong.
Yeah.
And I've found that just through doing the cardio and the nature of rowing, which is that it's a strength endurance sport, as in every repetition of the rowing stroke is a strength exercise in itself. The endurance kind of takes care of itself. I've never had a problem, even though I've switched over to just doing strength kind of stuff. But my peak power has gone up, which has meant that overall the rowing has become easier because each stroke feels lighter. So in some ways my endurance has gone up from that. But that's pretty much all I do. Like I just keep it as simple as possible, you know, three working sets of 5 and of the major exercises, and you're pretty good.
I think that's a great point that you mentioned because like at the end of the day, you need to exert force, and that 1 to 6 rep range is kind of where you're getting your power from. And if you don't have that power to start with, it like the 1 to 6 rep range is an unattractive rep range. It's not sexy. People don't want to do it in the gym. They don't want to be doing like 2 squats. So it is something that you
because it doesn't like make you big and stuff. But I found from doing that, it kind of made me a bit thicker everywhere and just more robust. And I put it on in a lot more balanced kind of fashion. I just kind of got a bit bigger everywhere from having to take that load. And also just on a lot of the training we do is that strength endurance, hypertrophy stuff. I just found that you just get so sore and tired from that the next day you can't really train. Like you can't train as well with the rowing, and you're not really getting any stronger for it. So with the strength stuff, I might have been a bit weaker, but I'm not as sore and I can still get into good, my positions aren't compromised as I'm rowing, you know? So yeah, that's pretty much my program.
I think that's fantastic. And of course, a lot of schools like Australia is so behind in terms of resistance training compared to like America or something, especially early on. So I think if you are an aspiring rower, or pretty much for most sports, like you need to kind of immerse yourself into resistance training because it will give you such an advantage.
Yeah, you don't need to become Ziz. You just need to kind of support your joints and be ready to go for when you do get into this crazy volume stuff like what Nick's doing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't know about you, Gab, but that's...
Look, I could still talk about every inch of the training regime, but I think in the interest of keeping viewership, I think we'll probably cut it there.
Yeah. I think I think this is our best podcast yet, to be honest. So hopefully people have made it to the end. Nick, thanks so much for your time, mate. We really appreciate it. It's been so good watching you this year, especially at the Olympics and stuff. It's really incredible, and we can't wait to see what you do in the future.
Yeah.
All right, thanks so much, fellas.